Hi, welcome. Welcome to Growing Bonsai. This is going to be a bit of a mishmash video. I am going to show you how I got this from raw material. I'll show you what it is like to do an exam in bonsai, and at the same time I'll answer 7 questions about me and bonsai as asked by Xavier from Expressions of Grace Bonsai. Join me on the journey. I am going to mix it all up, so stay till the end. Enjoy! Today I am actually preparing for my exams. Yes, for 6 years I've been working on a bonsai education in the International Bonsai School in Düsseldorf. They work together with Mr. Katagiri, and Mr. Katagiri is part of the Nippon Bonsai Association in Japan. So in 2 weeks time I'll need to show what I've learned, and one of the things that I need to do is an exhibition, and this tree is the tree that I want to put in the exhibition. There are a few things that I need to do beforehand though. As you can see, there's a bit broken off from the pot, so I want to swap the pot around, put this in the back. Then the trunk is quite dirty, I want to clean it up. I want to look at the live veins and make them more exposed. And then in the end I'm going to treat all the deadwood with the hidden fluid. So that's part 1 of the exam. There's 2 more parts of the exam. One part is theory. Part 3 of the exam will be the styling of a tree, and I found myself a nice little tree in the garden, and it has been styled as a bonsai before, and it's going to get a makeover, and I'll pull that tree out in a minute. But before I do, this tree, it needs some cleanup, it needs a little bit of pruning, clean up top of the bark. Join me. I might as well just take a look at the letter that I got from Xavier Martinez of Expressions of Grace Bonsai. And he is asking 7 questions. Well, let's go through them. First question, who am I? Second question, what country are you from? Let me just take the first 2 questions together. So my name is Jelle and I was born in the Netherlands, and I grew up in a city called Gouda or Gouda, which is quite known for the cheeses. I went on and I studied biology, focusing on tropical ecology in Wageningen University. And after that I did a degree in learning how to use satellites to map the physiology of plants. So that's me. I've lived in quite a few countries. I've worked in Canada, I've worked in Africa in different countries, I've lived in Australia. I spent several months on the beach observing sea turtles, and I followed elephants around in the savannah. So my background really is in biology. And maybe that also brings me to the question, how did I start bonsai? Where did I start bonsai? Why? A couple of years ago I got a job and I stopped working as an active biologist, and I'm now just more of an administrator in a university. And I decided I need to do something outside. And that is when an old hobby of mine, yes, a very old hobby, as a little kid, I started with bonsai. And my parents, they gave me a little book for my birthday on how to grow bonsai. And actively I started and I put some cuttings in a pot. And then we went on summer holidays, and we came back from summer holidays, and of course the bonsai were dead. And with that, the hobby died for me as well. Well, having settled down about 12 years ago, I picked up bonsai again. And now I just have way too many trees. The first part is basically just with an old toothbrush, cleaning of the algae as much as possible from the trunk. As you can tell here, there's not a lot of algae because I've treated the trunk in the past. And I'm still going to wet it all, because the yin fluid that I'm using later on will better adhere to the wood if the wood is nice and moist. This is a bit tricky, but I am going to remove the old bark and see where the live vein ends. I think it has been withdrawn. And I say it's a bit tricky because if you start, there's not really a way that you can say I'm just going to do part of it. So I have to go through the whole tree and do the whole tree, remove all the bark. Third question, what was your first bonsai? I started as a young kid. All those trees are gone and they never survived more than a couple of weeks. And I tell everybody that this is my first bonsai, or that this is where I started my bonsai journey. And in part that is true. This is the first tree that I really bought as a tree, and I didn't just work with a cutting or a seedling, and that really triggered real bonsai thoughts in me. That being said, I think this is the plant that I have had the longest now. This is an yew, And this yew was grown from seed, or actually a 1-year-old seedling. I found a tiny little plant in the garden. I planted it on top of this rock, and ever since I've been growing it very slowly over this rock. And as you can tell, I'm still not happy with the roots, I'm still not happy with the plant, but it is getting close. It is very, very close to becoming a bonsai, and I think next year I'll take everything off and then I'll show the root over rock yew that I grew from seed. Right, pretty much done here with cleaning off the old bark, and an hour and a half wasted. But it is a necessary thing. It is not just so you can have a nice look and that the bark is better delineated against the deadwood. No, if you take off the flaky old bark from the juniper, then you also remove the places where insects can hide over winter, so you have less of a problem in spring when everything starts coming out of shelter. What was your favorite bonsai? This is my favorite, maybe not because it is the most expensive or... No, it is more... I've had this tree for a long time. I shaped it during a workshop where I had lots and lots of fun in the UK. And it has been with me for a long time. The foliage is nice developed. I think this is one of my better trees, and I really like how this tree is coming together, especially since I developed it myself with my own hands from raw material over the last, I don't know, is it a decade by now? Maybe a little bit shorter, but not much. So I've given the tree a bit of a wash, and now it is the challenge of getting it out of the pot without disturbing the root ball too much, flipping it around in the pot and then getting it potted back up, and all this without hurting the roots too much, because as you can see the tree is nice and green and healthy. I want to keep it this way for my test in 2 weeks time. Now if you have a pot like this one with 3 holes, this is what you could do. You have one long wire with a little loop, you make a 3rd wire on top of it. So then you can just put it through the pot holes and have a 3-point tie down in your pot. Now pay attention, Jelle. What is the front of the tree? This is the front of the tree. Where is the damage to the pot? That is here, so the damage of the pot to the back. That's what I was afraid of. Now I of course don't want the wires to be in view, so what I've done, I've made a little eye here on the wire, and I'm going to push it here, this wire, through from the back. Help it out below the soil, through the hole that I made. There we go. That's one. Then this one, I figured I could fit underneath the roots here. The 3rd one that was here is now going to loop back. So back underneath the roots. Push it down. Let's see, this should work. This looks pretty promising. Put this one underneath here. Come on. And tighten these. What is your worst bonsai? I mean, that's a hard question to answer. In fact, it is a question I cannot answer. I have so many rubbish trees. And the reason for it is I grow a lot of plants as a project, and I grow them on until they get decent, and then I hand them over or I sell them. So a lot of the good trees are just moving out of my garden, and I like all my trees. They're in different stages of development, different qualities, but really rubbish trees, I don't think I have all that many, because they would not come into my garden unless I have a view for future development. So I use lime sulfur. This bleaches the wood a little bit, and it protects it against fungal infections. But I don't want the wood to go completely white, so what I have here is a bit of black ink. And that black ink I mix in with the lime sulfur, and that way during the working I can use it very dark or a little bit lighter. What is the most you paid for a bonsai tree? I think the most I paid was almost 300 euros for a tree that I needed urgently for a demonstration. I gave a demonstration this summer at the European Bonsai Convention, and there I needed a pine, and I just had a hard time finding a good one, so I paid quite a bit of money, and I think that is the most I've paid for a bonsai. In general, I try to just buy good trunks and nothing else. That means there's not a lot of development time in them, and you can typically get them at a reasonable price. So the lime sulfur is all done. Now it is time to add moss to the pot, and then I'll keep it probably in the shade for a little bit so that the moss can grow, the roots don't get a big hit, and then it's all done. Remove a few details here like pieces of bark and a few bits of pieces of green that are hanging down, but besides that, not going to do much more. This is the tree for the exhibition in 2 weeks' time. This must be one of the worst mossings I've done. But you know what? It will just have to do. There is no moss. So Xavier, does this answer your questions? Let me know in the comments. I now need to go and clean up my tools, collect the wire, and then get into the car, go to Düsseldorf and take my exam. Join me there. So, a couple of days later, and good news. I passed my exams. And this is the tree that I made out of it. We discussed before that I was going to remove a big yin here and a lot of foliage and put the canopy here, and indeed everything here is gone. And I can only say my sensei was happy with it and he gave me very, very good marks. So the outcome of my test. Yes, I passed. Theory, of course, was easy as possible. For this tree he was very concerned when I removed the old yin. And I made a nice setup in the tokonoma. Tokonoma? Huh? Anyway, I made a nice display of my other juniper, and he was quite pleased with how I used the space. One of the comments that I got was, the Deadwood was too white. So for this one I am also going to put some yin fluid on it, but I'm not going to make it as white. I'm going to use more black paint. And as you can see, the pot is tilted. I actually have another pot, and I'm going to use this pot for this tree. And yeah, I thought about repotting now, and then hopefully, you can see I'm in the shed. It is raining cats and dogs, and even water is coming down. Tree is dripping. So I hope that after the repot, the bark has dried up a little bit, making it easier to put yin metal on without getting all the bark white as well. This was repotted late last year, I think. It's not grown all that strongly this year, so I think the roots will not have filled the whole pot, but let's take a look. So I'm only going to remove a little bit of the old soil, just enough to get it back into the pot. And I'm not going to prune all that many roots, because in the end the aim is to get it to recover as quickly as possible. As before, I'm using the black ink to make sure it doesn't get stark white. The bark is not completely dry, but I guess it will have to do for now. I also want to get things done at a certain point, right? So with that, this is also done. I'm not happy with how it is in the pot. It sits a little bit too high, but that is because there's a bit of deadwood that goes all the way to the bottom of the pot. And I couldn't get the front exactly in front, but I'll fix that in the next repotting. The deadwood has been treated. Now it just needs to dry and set. And I suppose the video is done as well. Thank you for watching Growing Bonsai by Jelle. My name is Jelle, and I wish you keep growing bonsai.